we're going to do is we're going to put this back on our articulator. Close that back down. Again, you'll see we've got our stops. And what I'm going to do is use this acrylic called Pro Base. I'm going to get a couple little dapping dishes here. These are little flexible nylon dapping dishes. And a mixing spatula. And we're going to put a little separating material onto the lower, okay, just on the lower teeth so that it won't stick to the acrylic.
Where can we find that Pro Base working?
Ivoclar something. I mean, you can use any splint acrylic. I like this. It seems to be nice and clear. I've used this. I've used, I have regular splint acrylic. I've kind of used a little bit of everything. But this seems to work really well. It comes out nice and clear. So before I start doing this, I want to make sure I've got my pressure pot ready. So I'm going to go ahead over here and take my beads out of here. Dump them in here, and I'm going to get my pressure pot, and that goes for the Drufo, and I'm going to put a little warm water in it. And it doesn't have to be really hot, but it needs to be a little bit warm. So we've got a hot water dispenser in our office.
Among many other things.
Well, I used to have to run to the microwave to heat up water, and I was like, So we'll put some, that's pretty hot though, so we just want it to be warm. So we'll put some warm water in there and we'll get it ready. Right. And I like to use these little cutting boards because otherwise this stuff really bonds to solid surface. So we keep a bunch of them around to work on. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our two dapping dishes. We're going to take our liquid. And you can measure this out if you want.
Or not.
Or not. Whatever. What's your... I put a little extra into this one because I want to use it to like smooth. I'm going to go ahead and take the acrylic. And I'm just going to start adding it in and mixing it. And I want a fairly good consistency. I think they recommend like, I don't know, 8 mils of powder, 6 mils of liquid or something, but put the powder into the liquid, don't dump the... So what we're going to do is we're going to get this so it's a fairly decent consistency like this.
Condensed milk.
Yeah, kind of like that. And let it set just a little bit. Okay. In the meantime, I'm just going to take a little paintbrush and paint some of this extra monomer onto my splint where I'm going to add to it. And what that does is it just kind of, literally just kind of melts the plastic a little bit. Okay? It just makes it a little tacky. So it'll kind of increase the adhesion.
An artist.
Yeah. Alright, so, watch your acrylic till it gets to the point where it's going to... Yeah, take a few minutes to get sticky depending on what kind of acrylic you're using. Or if you use the right consistency. You don't want it to really run all over the place. So I like to wait till it gets a little sticky so that I can almost pick it up and put it into a little... once it gets to that, if you want, you can just paint a little bit on here just to kind of prime that area.
Easy peasy.
You don't want it running all over the place. But, the neater you are with this part, the less adjusting you're going to have to do later. Alright, so as it starts to set and it gets to a doughier stage, almost there, you can kind of start building this up. thing about this acrylic is once it starts going, it kind of sets. So we're going to build this up a little bit like that. You know, you kind of want to pay attention to where the lower teeth. Now, I'll take my finger with a little bit of that monomer on it, and I can go in here, and I can just smooth that. That's the wrong one. You're sticking your finger in the wrong place. You can mold the inside a little bit. And then I'm just going to check it. If I got, yeah, I'm pretty close to where I need to be. Okay. Make sure I've got enough acrylic where I need to be. Make sure I'm going to have a big enough little ramp. So just kind of smooth it and make sure you get it so it's kind of even across the front a little bit, like such.
So the interior hits.
Good job. Because we want dots where?
Dots in the posterior, lines on the interior.
Perfect. Now look, I'm going to close it down. Okay, and sometimes this stuff will want to stick a little bit, so even with that lubricant on it, so you let it get a little bit doughier, it doesn't tend to stick quite as much. But we definitely don't want to distort our stuff, so you can, and I think you can kind of move this around a little bit while it's still a little bit wet. The other thing you can do is, if you notice it's sticking, is we'll take probably empty. Anyway, I usually have some Vaseline in a monoject syringe that I've cut off. And I'll just keep that around to keep that from sticking. But in the meantime, let's just put some more liquid on here and see.
How much are those articulators usually?
They're not very expensive. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen my condylar elements, and now I'm going to go in protrusive. I'm going to go in right lateral, and I'm going to go in left lateral. And what I want to make sure is I'm going to have enough to pick up my cuspids and do that. And what that also does is it kind of wipes out those areas for you, you see? So I don't have to grind as much later. And you can see I've got my anterior stops, I've kind of got my protrusion. You know, if you wanted to, you could go in and obviously take some more of this acrylic off, but I'll just kind of smooth this. Kind of bend that over and get rid of that little flange. Because I can do a lot with this while it's still a little bit tacky. And now it's starting to get to a doughy stage. So, make sure I got a cuspid. Probably use a little bit more right there on that cuspid if it's not too set up, which it might be, so we'll deal with that later. Alright, and when we get to this point, again, nice thing about this articulator, you can take it off. Okay, we're going to drop it into our pressure pot. Now, when you pressurize, you don't have to worry about this arm at all. All you do is pull this to the side, push the button, it'll pressurize for you. Once it gets to the bar, bam. Okay. And then what I usually will do is take my extra acrylic I have here.
For how long do you do the pressure?
Well, it depends on how long the acrylic says. But you can see this is starting to get doughy and set. So what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll put a little hot water in it. And I'll just set it over here to the side. And once it's set up, I know the other's set up.